Joining me now, Lowry, editor-in-chief of National Review, Clay Travis, founder of Outkick and Fox News contributor, and Tammy Bruce, also a Fox News contributor, author of Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. Boy, we got a full house. Well, welcome, Clay Travis. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it very much. What do you make of this religious, or shall we say anti-religious, factor in this election, whether it's at the presidential level or the Senate level? There's, by the way, when I say religious or God, because to me, DEI has been a progenitor of anti-Semitism in the past year or so. It's a horrible trend. Anyway, what you think about it?
Well, I think DEI is religion for people who don't actually believe in religion, and therefore it characterizes many of their worldviews. And so as I would break it down, to me, when you really kind of analyze this, I love the Wall Street Journal editorial about Senate races in Wisconsin, in Michigan, and in Pennsylvania. And I watched last night, I don't know how many of you guys did, the Giants game against the Bengals, and I continue to see a great ad airing for people who watch football. And it is Kamala Harris being attacked by Donald Trump for being willing to pay for transgender surgery for immigrants and criminals. And really what it does is attack the essence of the Democrat argument, because, look, they believe that men who pretend to be women should be able to win women's champions because they believe that they are actually women. And I think white, black, Asian, Hispanic, men in particular, sports fans who are men and women, overwhelmingly reject it. I think it could decide the election in what I'm calling the Big Ten states.
The Big Ten states. Tammy Bruce, you know, on that point, I mean, you got I won't say it's a new evangelical group, but it's kind of a newly nascent group, the Reformation, the Apostolic Reformation. That's part of it. It's not just a Catholic thing, it becomes a Christian thing. And I know Trump has addressed this in his own way, but there's a Jewish problem developing because the Biden-Harris administration not stand up for Israel, but not really going after anti-Semitism. Never really did much when it was unmasked at places like Columbia and Penn and other fancy pants places. It never did much about it.
Yeah, you know, I think that this is partly rooted in envy, but also, having come from the left, the notion that anything that competes with the idea that government is everything. You must look to government for your answers, morally and otherwise. That anything that is about faith, the idea that there's something beyond us as human beings that can inform your ideas about what's appropriate, how to live your life, who you are answerable to, is the threat, the left worldwide. And they can't have that. But they know that, you know, they're also envious of the religiosity of what people are willing to give those who are seen as being, superior to them or having all the answers. And that's why what DEI provides is a kind of religious base and answer. But it also provides the ability, because of the issue of envy, to go after Jews. People who have relied on education and their faith beyond every government through millennia that has tried to exterminate them. It has elevated them. And it shows you, it is just like the United States is the living example about freedom and what the capitalist free market can achieve. The Jewish people are the people who have shown humanity what can be accomplished with faith and a belief in yourself beyond the nature of what man will tell you. Yeah, and that is what destroys the left.
People have resented it and persecuted them for millennia.
Correct. And they've never become victims because they've never let go of that faith, and that is their primary crime.
Lowry, editor-in-chief of National Review. You recall our good friend William F. Buckley wrote many years ago. I talked about it when we had the political event at the Reagan Library. A nation without religion is sunk. Families without religion are sunk. It breaks up the whole country. He didn't say which religion, although he himself was a devout Catholic, but religion, God, a higher power. DEI is not a higher power. Government is not a higher power. Socialism and communism is not a higher power. That's the problem here.
So a free society is this plane, you got to have two wings. One's freedom and the other is virtue. Without virtue, the freedom doesn't work. And
Exactly.
I think what Clay was hitting on the trans ads that Republicans are using now, this is really a watershed. Because a couple years ago, Republican electeds were scared of this issue.
That's right.
Yes.
They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to seem extreme or intolerant. And suddenly this light bulb went off. Every Senate race around the country, and you have Democrats running scared on it, and Trump running this ad. To my understanding, this ad tests better than any of his other ads. The she's for they, them, not us.
Yep.
This is it's a common sense view, if you ask me. Biological men should not play in women's sports, okay?
Yes.
Is that asking too much? Now, that's not a religious issue. Again, it's a common sense issue. And I don't know. To me, it's a winning issue, or let me say it's a losing issue for those who support it. These guys who is it, Sherrod Brown, and the one in Wisconsin, Tester, John Tester.
Baldwin.
Yeah, Baldwin.
John in Texas, too.
John Tester in Montana. I mean, that is not Montana values. That will never be Montana values. So, but I'm kissing him goodbye. But the other's more interesting to me. They're stuck with that, and that's a bad losing issue.
Yeah, it's so bad, in fact, in Texas, Colin Allred, who got attacked in the Senate campaign by Ted Cruz over this issue, actually had to cut a brand new ad saying, actually, I'm not in favor of this.
Yeah,
and
he said boys should not compete in girls' sports, and then was attacked by the left for using the
that's
word
right.
boys.
That's right. And this would be...
Can't make it up. No, he can't make it up.
This would be, by the way, I know Brett Baer is sitting down on Wednesday with Kamala Harris. No one's ever been asked this in high levels of the Democrat Party. To my knowledge, Joe Biden's never been asked. Do you believe that a biological man identifying as a woman should be able to compete in college athletics and high school athletics against women, against girls? To me, is a foundational question, because if you're arguing that these men are actually women, then you are buying into a fundamental untruth. And once they can force you to lie, they can get you to lie about many things.
Can I add, it is the ultimate deconstruction of the truth, which then strikes at everything else we believe and language itself. And that then also goes back to faith.
How about the opposite of faith, which is being pushed by Democratic interest groups, anything to do with, I'm just going to call woke culture, but woke culture in the schools. Woke culture at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, I don't know, that's their problem. It probably is America's problem, but it's their problem. But woke culture in the public schools, and then remember you go after the parents who tried to go after woke culture.
Yeah, they just don't want their kids to learn about this in kindergarten, right?
Right.
And this is part of the problem, and has led to this political vulnerability for Democrats. They existed in this woke bubble where they were with all the people in the media and academia who thought this was the new mainstream, right? We're going to have biological males competing with girls, and it's the new realm of progress, right? So they thought it was fine, when really 60, 70, 80% of people oppose it, and now finally they're being made to pay a price.
And Tammy Bruce, I'm determined to go to you.
Oh, please do.
No, he's very excited today, and it's a pleasure to see
We all are. It's an exciting time.
Look at this anti-Catholic stuff, I'll just call it. One thing after another.
Let me just say,
it's very clear. And I just want to add one thing.
Yes.
Jim Nicholson, I've known Jim Nicholson forever. He is not a bombastic guy. He's not way out there in terms of making statements. In fact, he wasn't really a Trump supporter this time around, although he will be at the voting booth. But the point is, he and Calista Gingrich, both former ambassadors to the Vatican. It's infuriating to them. And I got to believe, Trump lost the Catholic vote in 2020. He's polling ahead in the swing state Catholic vote now. That is huge. The Catholic vote is actually bigger than this apostolic Reformation
and the
vote.
larger influence, I'm not Jewish, I'm not a Catholic. I believe in God. I have an issue with some organized religion. But that Gretchen Whitmer behavior, that video, what's happening with the Jews on campuses and in media, and this lackadaisical attitude you talk about, the nature of going after Catholics, of faith in general, is appalling to all of us. I think it strikes the average American, whether they are a person of faith or not, as deeply unfair, deeply obscene, and a sign of, especially on this Columbus Day, of striking at Western civilization's norms to debilitate the nature of our
and you know who was
system.
attacking Christopher Columbus a couple years ago? Kamala Harris.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So she realizes this is a vulnerability on a certain level. Her campaign does. So
did they track
get the
down
pose.
the Christopher Columbus statue?
No,
I think it's still there.
It's still there.
But people
it's still
battle
there.
over this.
Yeah, but this is like
I
one of
don't
the-
understand. It's an anti-Catholic thing.
Yeah.
And
First it was
anti-Western.
anti-Italian. It was
Western
anti-Italian.
civilization.
Yes, and Western
And
civilization.
I would tie it into the Olympic ceremony, too. Because what I see here
point.
is, for everybody who remembers the Last Supper bastardization that they
Oh, my
allowed,
God, it was awful.
They would never have done anything like what they did in the Olympics or what Gretchen Whitmer did if Islam was the butt of the joke.
Correct.
Because they would be terrified of what the response would be. The actual generosity of people of the Christian faith is what lampoons them in many ways, because for the most part, you can get away with doing or saying anything about the Christian.
But not on this program, Larry.
I'll tell you.
We are here to make up the difference.
We're doing straight social issues. We are an aftermarket show. Rich Lowry, Tammy, Bruce, Clay.
Thank you so much.
Clay, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.